Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining for this evening's mentorship learning. My name is Oluyemi Adeosun. Tonight, we'll be talking about a topic, toxicity in the workplace. You don't have to quit, except you have to. Our facilitator tonight is Ayobami Rahim, and she's a very skilled professional who excels in diverse array of fields, including human resources, talent acquisition, and project management. She's a personal development coach, entrepreneur, broadcaster, and content creator. She's the foundative director of Tama Enterprise, and she has established a strong online presence through her various handles. Ladies and gentlemen, in addition to this, uh, she has her first degree in employment relations and human relations from the University of Lagos, and she's also pursuing a degree. All right, she's pursuing a master's degree while also obtaining a certification in strategic human resource management. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to present to us tonight Ayobami Rahim as she speaks to us on in the workplace. You don't have to quit, except you have to.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Eme, for this, awesome opportunity for us to learn again. And I don't want to take much of our time. This is a virtual meet, and I am so grateful for this learning opportunity for every one of us. I am also here to learn. I'm not just here to, you know, talk to us on this topic. This topic is so dear to me, and I believe this is something that many of us are currently going through, even though you've not identified it. But I am pretty sure that along the line you would get insight and you would get help. All right. So let's just dive into what toxicity means. When we hear toxicity, I like my sessions and speaking engagement to be very interactive. I would have loved to ask us questions, but because of time and and first let me apologize for joining late. I had some logistics, issues that I needed to attend to, and I had to jump at this in the middle of it. So I apologize. It's not my attitude. So pardon me. Now, when we hear toxicity, this is the state of being very harmful you know, um, or unpleasant in a dangerous, threatening way. Okay. So now, I would go on and say a healthy workplace is vital for your growth. And just so I reiterate, this is an introduction. All right. So a healthy workplace is vital and is vital for your growth and happiness. All right. So however, some workplaces can become toxic, which means they are filled with negative behaviors and attitudes that can harm employees. All right. So understanding that workplace toxicity is and how it affects you is crucial. So this knowledge can help you to decide whether to stay in your job or consider other options. So a lot of times, what we go through in our different workspaces might not actually be toxicity. All right. But I believe as we go on, on this journey, we would then know if what we are actually going through, if the situation or the circumstances around our job, unsatisfaction is toxicity or not toxicity. All right. So I want you guys to also know, all right, that before toxicity happens, there had been some underlying issues, there had been some underlying, feedbacks and all of that. All right. And majority are responsive. So it could be from the behaviors of those around us, or despite, relationships that has been established. Okay. We could be having some attitudes that influence or informs us, that environment is toxic or not. So let's move on. The next slide, sir. Next slide. All right, so let me move on. Now, workplace toxicity. So that we understand what workplace toxicity means. Workplace toxicity refers to an environment that is harmful to employees. Okay. Workplace toxicity can also include bullying, harassment. So when we hear workplace toxicity, so toxicity actually can apply to different things. It could be your family, it could be amongst friends, it could be your church, it could, I mean, your religious society, it could be your professional body, right? It could be different, spheres and different platforms. But then our own focus tonight is workplace toxicity. And so when we hear workplace toxicity, right, so it refers to an environment that is harmful to employees, because this is actually employee focused. All right. So now workplace toxicity can also include bullying, harassment, poor communication, unfair treatment, excessive stress amongst employees, colleagues, which leads to decreased morale and can affect productivity and job satisfaction. Now, when you hear workplace toxicity, it means that this has gone beyond behaviors, beyond attitudes. So now it now involves action. Whether it is impulsive or not, it now involves action. So there is something that now has prompted someone else in the workplace, to do something that now pricks your heart or offends you or hurts you. All right. So this could involve bullying. We can see the image right there. You can see that there is actually an altercation between two persons, and then the person at the middle is trying to resolve what is going on. Pretty funny, right? So this could involve harassment. Probably there is a senior manager that wants to call out something that a subordinate has done, and that person just calls the person. We could call it embarrassment, okay? But now we are using the word harassment, okay? So it could also refer to bullying, all right? It could refer to excessive stress. So probably, one person is giving, a lot, or how would I put it now? Like an extended or an extensive deliverables outside the person's KPIs. And then this person has their KPIs that they should focus on, because you would be appraised on it, all right? Because you're expected to deliver on what should be your primary functions and responsibility in that workspace. So we have people who are actually giving much more workload, and it stresses them off. All right. So it gives them, and we also should take cognizance of our mental health. But then I want you to know that at your workspace, in your work environment, many people do not understand what mental health means. Okay. But then you as a person, you are going through it, and you understand that this is what you're going through. So it could involve excessive stress amongst colleagues. All right. So I'll go to the next slide quickly. Signs of a toxic workplace. So when you hear toxic workplace, there are some triggers, there are some signs that you see or would notice and would tell you that this place, is actually toxic. A lot of times, some of those signs might not actually be real triggers, but we have to understand that when you see these signs, then you know that there is something going on in that environment that is not pleasing, all right? That is not pleasing, okay? And it's quite negative, all right? So signs of a toxic workplace. So recognizing the signs of toxicity can help you assess the situation. So when you understand, when you have seen these signs, you've taken your analysis, you understand what is going on, you can then evaluate and take proper analysis of the situation and assess what exactly is going on. Okay, so we have some signs that include frequent conflicts, regular arguments or tension among team members. So let me use myself as an example. So there was a time at one of the places that I've worked in the past. All right, so there was a time, my line manager and myself, we were always having conflict. And this was not even conflict of interest. It was more of, this person trying to get in the way. Okay. And I noticed that this thing was affecting me. Do you understand? It was affecting me, not to go into much details, but I was able to detect, I was able to identify that this is becoming a conflict, and I had to call his attention to it. Right. So, not like I made him see that, okay, what you're doing is affecting me. But now, what do I mean by, so there are different approaches to this thing. Right. So you understand the person you're working with before you even approach them, so that you know what strategy to deploy. A lot of times, some people, you cannot just go bluntly and tell them, see, this is what you're doing to me. It could just be that you might need to reduce your manner of communication, right? Or just do something. Maybe you're doing something too much. You might need to reduce it, right? So I just called his attention to it, and I jokingly said it, and it passed the message across to him. And since then, right, till he left the organization, we were good friends. We became real, like, good friends, So low morale can also be one. Okay. So employees seem unhappy or disengaged, right? So probably there is one person who is disabled in any manner. Maybe you feel like that person, whenever they speak, it doesn't pass an intelligent contribution to what is going on. There is a way you make this person see that, okay, this is the way to think, this is the way to contribute to, an existing conversation or a current conversation. But maybe when you now find yourself in that situation where you're supposed to call that thing out, and then you just say it, you know, like you just publicly harass that person. And you're like, how do you even think? So don't you think before you speak? That thing can demoralize one's emotions. So we have to know how, as colleagues, how to pass a message across if you intend to correct someone or intend to call something out. Okay. So I turnover can also be part of it. So we have many employees that are leaving an organization. This could be a sign of toxicity in a workspace. So one thing I do whenever maybe I'm called to consult, all right, I am engaged to consult in any organization, right? Or people approach me to ask questions, okay? Or even my own workplace, all right? So there is something I try to do my own evaluation, carry out my analysis. How, what's the rate of staff turnover? What's the rate of staff attrition in this place? How do people come in? How do people go? That's also a way to see that, to see if that work environment, because people come and go for different reasons. So let's not now, decode wrongly. All right. So people come, people go for different reasons. But then high turnover can be part of, a toxic trait, right? So now maybe you hear that people are leaving an organization for consistent demoralization of one's emotion, okay, or for not recognizing. So there are different reasons, but then there would be something. Now if you hear about 70 to 80%, how you get to know? This is a pointer. So if you hear about 70% to 80% of persons that have left the organization or are in that organization, you hear them complain of a particular thing. There is just one thing. And people have a way of explaining, their feelings. All right. So, but then you who are being opportuned to hear, you can now break them into smaller, units for your understanding, to see that, okay, right, these people are actually saying the same thing, but are saying it in different ways and different forms. All right. So that's how you get to know. So if people are complaining about one thing, about a particular thing, and they are considering to leave an organization, I hope you know that turnover doesn't just mean people leaving. It could also mean that people are considering to leave an organization. All right. So that's also a way to know. We have lack of support, little guidance or resources from the management. So people actually tend to want to leave an organization when their personal development is not being, encouraged. All right. So for me, maybe my own reason for joining an organization is to grow, specifically for my growth. And I see that this organization, right, there is no room for personal development. There's no room for career advancement. All right. You have little guidance, like, the team is so slim. There is nobody, it's fast paced. There is nobody telling you what to do and what not. There is nobody guiding you. The organization, they don't have, they are not big on learning and development. They don't have training sessions. They don't engage external consultants to come to the organization to have sessions with you, to increase your intelligence and help you advance in your career. So this could also be a part of a toxic trait. All right. Now, what can you do? You have identified the signs. And I want us to know that the signs of a toxic workplace is not limited to this. These are just part of the signs. All right. Now, what can you do? You have identified the signs, but then there are things that you can do. Okay. So we have first assess the situation. Determine if the toxicity is temporary or a long-term issue. Adelia said this, when you notice toxicity, you have identified it, you have seen it in the atmosphere, you have seen it amongst your colleagues, you have seen it, in the air, in the atmosphere, it's all over. It's all over, right? I want to be sure you guys are following me. So can someone unmute and say hello? Or Mr. Amy, we can just, confirm
I'm the
that
only one that can unmute, and we are
okay,
following
you're the
you.
only one that can unmute. All right, all
Yes,
right. So
but don't call me
great.
out. Thank you.
All right, fine. So now, what can you do? You have identified toxicity in the workplace. The first thing you would do, okay, as a recipient, is to assess the situation. So toxicity is all over this place. You have perceived it, you have seen it. Assess the situation. Determine if the toxicity is temporal or it's a long-term issue. Now, the next thing you will do is to communicate. Talk about your concerns with a trusted co-worker or supervisor. A lot of times, many of us, we want to internalize. You just want to keep it all in. It will do you no good if you want to do that for a long term. But then, after assessing it, okay, find a colleague, or if your supervisor is approachable, meet with them. It's not just for you, it's for the good of every staff in that organization. And that would benefit the integrity of the organization. I want us all to know that. So once you have identified it and you've assessed it, communicate it. Now, the next that you can do is to set boundaries. Protect your mental health by limiting interactions with toxic individuals. So you have probably identified that there is a particular person in the organization doing things that affect you mentally. If that person is not a direct colleague, you guys are not working together, the person is not on your team, or you're not reporting to that person, probably prior to the time that you noticed toxicity, you guys were, you were always, around each other, cheering each other on, but then there were just signs that toxicity has come in the way. You can set boundaries, reduce your manner of communication with that person. If you're always having chit chats in the organization, all right, you can reduce it for your own mental health. Now, the next thing you will do is to seek support. Consider professional help like counseling or coaching. You know, if after speaking to your colleagues or your supervisor, and then you realize that it's not helping, or you feel that that's not the best you can do, probably everybody in your work environment, you feel like they're thinking the same way. Now, one thing you can do, okay, because you are not an island, all right, and you have to be flexible in your thinking, what you can do is to speak to an external body. Find a mentor. And I always say this, for everybody, there is, in fact, no matter how high and prime you are, you need a mentor, because many times we think 180 degrees, but then when we speak to someone else, that person, the wisdom we get from speaking to that person helps us see 360 degrees, right? So find someone who is not within your circle of colleagues. who is outside your workspace, your mentor or your counselor. Speak to them and then they will share wisdom with you. Another thing you can do is to explore options. If things don't improve, think about looking for a new job. After doing all of the things aforementioned, all right, then you can now resolve to start plotting your exit. So if after speaking to a counselor and they've shared wisdom and insights for what you can do and it's not working, you've assessed it, you've communicated, you share with your co-worker, your colleagues, or your colleague, you share with your supervisor, and it feels like nothing is working, then you can now start plotting your exit. So you don't plot many times when we have identified toxicity. The first response, you just hear some people say, no, this place is not the best for me. I beg, I want to leave. I will be working here for, some people, they're actually on a particular, pay. And then they feel like that's not what is due to them. They feel like they're more than that. A lot of time, it is because you've not communicated it. And there is an approach to that, but that's not what we're talking about tonight. All right. But I mean, maybe when you've identified something and then you've figured out options and then they are not working, the first thing that comes to mind is not leaving. You ensure that you have exhausted all the options that you have, right? And if after exhausting all of this, you feel like, okay, you are still within the same space, then you begin to plot your exit. Now, when to consider quitting. While you may need to quit right away, there are certain situations that may require you to leave. Now, you have started considering to leave your workspace because you feel like you have deployed all the strategies you can deploy. You've exercised all the intelligence and options that you have, intellectually, mentally, and it feels like, in fact, you are already exhausted of options. There is nothing else for you to do. Okay. So while you may need to actually start thinking of quitting that workspace, all right, there are several situations, okay, that require you to leave. Now, we have first, persistent toxicity. Now, if efforts to prove the situation fail, that's what that means. So you have exhausted I respect people who are actually very resilient. They feel like, okay, they have tested the waters, they have applied, options, they have deployed strategies, and they don't give up. Not because they've not found options to leave. Let me tell you, in fact, some people, they would rather say, no, I want to take my time in this organization and understand all the concepts, processes, nitty-gritties of this job, of this industry before I set to leave. That is wisdom. Now, except you have persistently felt the impact of toxicity in that workspace, then you can now consider to leave. So there are two ways to this. Now, first is to deploy all the options that I have earlier mentioned. And then the second one is you have deployed it, you have explored all of that, and then you feel like, okay, no, let me go a step further. Let me try again. Let me take it again. Let me go all over again. And then you try. That is persistence. Resilience. It's a skill, and then you do that. Okay. So if after trying all of that, you now feel like nothing seems to work, then you cannot consider to plot your exit. And then we have health concerns. If your mental or physical health is seriously affected, sometimes some staff could just decide that, oh, they want to just go run some tests, and then they feel like, the result of that test they've done, the doctor is themselves even advised that they go on a bed rest. They could consider to quit their job, or it could be that probably there is, a female colleague who put to bed, and then you just want to leave your workspace. You feel like, maybe your family, you guys have discussed it, and you feel like, okay, you just want to take a longer time to rest, relax, and get back to shape before you get to work again. You could consider to quit. because you don't want to hold them to ransom, right? So there are several reasons, or maybe there is you have some health related issues, and then it requires you to stay out of your job for a long time or for some time, right? You have to do that. That would require you to also, consider to quit. And then the final one is career stagnation. Now, if the toxic environment is hindering your growth and opportunities, I ask, some people this question. Maybe I get to know, or they tell me, or I see it online, right? And I want to talk. Maybe you have been an officer for, say, 3 to 4 years in a particular organization. Don't they have structure? Don't they have cadres in that organization? Is there no advancement, career advancement? Don't they have steps of promotion? Don't they have upward reviews? Okay, you've been there. That is actually, you've tried. That's a substantial contribution to that organization. You've been an officer for some time. So if you're not getting a review on your salary, then you should be upgraded on your role. Maybe becoming an executive after, say, 4 years in that particular organization, right? Or maybe you've been there for longer years and then you've not been, sent out for a training. You've not been supported on your professional qualification and certifications, or you guys don't do like regular training sessions. So these are things to look out for when it comes to professional growth. But if there are none of this in that organization, you can now consider that as a career stagnation, because of course you are seeing your peers, you are seeing your mates move forward. A lot of them, they've gone past that level that you are. Then you have to now, take your time to now evaluate, do proper analysis, assess the situation. I have been here for a long time. What value has been added to me? So I tell people, see, it's a win-win. It's a value in, value out. We are pouring in, it's shared value. So we are pouring in value into each other. You're pouring into the organization, and then the organization as well should pour into you. All right. So once you identify career stagnation, if you feel that, or you've noticed and identified that, none of your efforts can actually pave way, okay, then you can now consider that toxic because it has become harmful, to your growth. Do you understand? Um, all right. So now that brings me to the conclusion of my presentation. Dealing with a toxic workplace can be tough, okay? But you don't have to face it alone. So a lot of times, some of us like to say, I'll get over it, I'll go through it alone, and then I'll be fine. I'll be all right. You just feel like anytime, any day, anytime it feels like you come out from that situation, it is fine. But some way, somehow, you are being affected, either mentally, psychologically, physically. You just realize that there is something going on somewhere. Maybe you just see yourself, you just become unhappy for no reason, or you just see that there is just a way you react to things, okay? Or maybe you're not giving your best to your job. Sometimes some people stay in a particular workspace and they are not appreciated for some time, and they just, you know, develop a cold feet. They just drop the ball, they just lose interest, and mind you, don't get to that time when you begin to lose interest and passion for what you love to do. Anything that would cost you your joy, anything that would cost you your passion, anything that would cost you longing for growth, check it. Do a proper check. If it means detach from it immediately, like detach, because you just realize that you're losing interest. Some people, you see them emaciating, you think is the work they're doing. You think is, too much of workload or stress. It could be that they're emotionally going through something. So don't face it alone. Do not face it alone. Now, by identifying the signs, taking proactive steps, and knowing when it's time to move on, you can protect your well-being and career. Remember, Your health and happiness are important, and sometimes living is the best choice for a brighter future. I hope with these few points of mine, I've been able to convince you and not to confuse you that a lot of times taking proper evaluation and assessing the situation could be the solution to that toxic response, okay? And not thinking to quit immediately, all right? So I do hope that from time to time, as you engage my social media platforms, we would all learn together. And that brings me to the end of my talk with you all tonight. Thank you. Mr. Yemi, you can take it up from here, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. the presentation. Stable of attending the conversation. You know how level the subject might be out a toxic environment. When I say overcome, either just an employee toxic environment or while the are in a toxic and you are able to detoxify it. Please, for the purpose of today's session, don't mention organization, don't give any of our mental health is our collective concern. All right. So if you like to talk, ask questions, do comment, please grant so that we can grant you permission to unmute. And you can go ahead if you also want to drop your comments in the chat. Our facilitator is here and we'll read it out and respond to your questions, comments, and contributions appropriately. I see quite a number of people appreciating our facilitator tonight in the chat box. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. So the first question for our facilitator, please put on back your video, please. Your beautiful face is enough to detoxify
You're breaking, so I might not hear you clearly. You can just put it in the chat box. You can help me type it in the chat box. I can't hear
you. So everything I've been saying since, did anybody hear?
You were actually breaking.
Mr. Yemi, you were breaking up.
Okay.
Hello, Dr. Yemi.
Doctor, you were breaking. So
hello, doctor. Can you hear us? You were breaking up, seriously.
I'm typing now. I'm typing now. My network is bad.
Okay.
Oh, we can now hear you.
Okay. So the first question I can see here. So which do I answer? Should I answer the first one or the second? This one that you posted, when the Gen Z emerged in the workplace, it appeared that toxicity became visible. Let me answer that first. So I mentioned that, so one thing I do is to understand my colleagues and know how to approach them. So I hear people say, when these Gen Zs come like this, there is this vibes they bring on board, and then it just changes everything. The truth is, these people actually bring joy to the environment. And at the same time, there is a way their attitude comes off as these guys are not ready to learn. They do not lack respect. Their manner of composure is out of this world. There is a way to manage them. And that's why we are HRs. We learn to manage people and their I mean, there are different personalities with different cuts of characters, attitude, and all of that. And people are carrying different, I mean, people are managing different kinds of not arrow, pardon me. People are actually managing different kinds of trauma that influence how they behave, So that's one thing we should take note of. So you should, as a colleague, learn how to manage whoever, whether or not they are Gen Z, So some of them do not like that you openly correct them. Okay. So there is a way to manage that particular situation. Just understand these people and know how to take your time to be close to them. You would know their kind of person and how best to approach them. Because if you want to say, okay, maybe you are a top manager in the organization, or you're privy to, maybe you're the HR, and you feel like, okay, disengaging them is the best the best solution, you will disengage all your staff one day, because some of us, well, cheers to the millennials, some of us who are actually millennials, we do have these traits. That's the truth. You have some Gen Zs that are actually sensible, more sensible than millennials. Are we on track? So understand these people and know how best to approach them and manage the situation. How do one handle a boss that takes every opportunity to go against? Dr. Emi, please know when I should stop answering questions. Okay, I don't think we have. Okay, just 2 more questions. So how do one handle a boss that takes every opportunity to go against staff development and growth, like denying staff approval for trainings, putting junior staff over senior staff? Okay, so let me go this route. So one thing you should understand, that your personal development is not dependent on where you're working. Now, your organization owe you support for your career growth because you're working for them. And I need you to understand that you can learn on different platforms. If this is the case, because you have a boss that takes every opportunity, because that person is actually the boss and he is on high shoulders because of it, okay? And it keeps what's it called now? It keeps going against all manner of suggestions for what's it called? Personal development in the workspace, trainings, and causing chaos. Regardless, if that is the situation and you've tried to give an influence, probably write to the organization. You could even suggest a feedback session, probably carrying out survey. If you guys do not have like a feedback box or a suggestion box where you can actually drop anonymous contributions and suggestions, you could actually meet with another manager or another of your boss, okay, in the organization, and say that, okay, that you have some suggestions for the organization. Even if you're not the direct person affected, you could just make it an open one and say, that you have some suggestions for the management that would be of benefit for the organization in retaining staff, because it's also a retention strategy, right? So you could now do that anonymously. You could just tell them that you prefer to write, and then you write it or say it verbally, right? That you want to suggest to the organization that they have training sessions, and come out, let them know what the benefits are. Okay, I am sure that they would also look into it. But if you have deployed different options in trying to help with the situation and it does not work, then do not now become crippled and say, my organization, anything I suggest to my boss like this, there's this my boss, high and mighty, this and that. Don't limit yourself. I mean, go join different professional platforms where they share. For example, this is one of them. And thank you so much, Dr. Oluyemi, for this opportunity. This is part of such platforms that you can learn. Go for conferences, paid or unpaid. Go out, leverage on LinkedIn. Go out, search on IG, Choose different platforms to learn. If you have the money, pay, pay for your professional qualifications and certifications. Ensure that your growth is not dependent on what you get from the organization, whether they are concerned or not.
Vicky
Is it that
Stars,
they do not cope
Vicky Star,
like
you can
older?
contribute.
Sorry?
Someone's hand is up. Let her talk, please. Vicky, go ahead.
Am I done with the questions?
No, not yet, but somebody's hand is up. Let her contribute.
All right, you can go on. You can go on.
All right. Thank you, Doctor. Good evening, Mom. Thank you for the section.
Good evening.
It was really a pleasant one. Well, my question is, what about if you have a boss? It doesn't listen to anybody and is very toxic. When I mean toxic, to the stage it really affects the mental health of almost, let me not say everyone, almost everyone. So you made mention of, in the case of you don't need to leave, but you don't create that platform where you meet with this person always. But the position I occupy, I don't have a choice than to meet. Yes. So if I had the opportunity not to meet, I tell you the truth for free. I will not want to, but I don't. So how do you relate with this person? Because you know that feeling you have when it gets to Monday and you're scared already. What will you do? What will you say? What that kind of feeling. So how do you handle such? Thank you.
Okay, so this is the best approach I think you can deploy. Someone actually shared our experience with me, and it's very similar to yours. And what I told her is what I'm going to tell everybody and share with us. Now, first is nobody in the organization determines your joy. That is the first. I mean, just have that at the back of your mind, because there is this thing when you see someone who you guys you don't cut it when it comes to communication, when it comes to physical appearance. Once that person appears, you just begin to have palpitations. There is just this fear, most especially if that person is your superior. And even if that person is your subordinate and you're not in that place to disengage that person, there is just this irritation that comes upon that person. You just feel irritated by the appearance of that person at all. Understand that nobody determines your joy in a work environment. And the next thing I would tell you is keep your relationship professional. So I'm sure there are times when this person wants to try smile, wants to try, bring up bubbly conversations, try to like say something that will make I don't know if you guys have that relationship. However, make your conversation strictly official. Now, if you now notice persistent toxicity, and I've mentioned this, that you see that the person's appearance or the environment has become so toxic that it is affecting you. Once you realize that you working in an environment has started affecting you mentally, and it is because if you become so affected, it would affect the productivity on your job. And so you have to be very careful, because you don't want to, because of someone's attitude towards you, now put your own job on the line. So once you realize that you work in that environment and whoever is causing you persistent emotional torture, plot your exit. If you know that you are not in that place where you can probably change a department or do anything to the situation, please plot your exit, while you are there. But just while you're still there, because I know how the economy is, while you are still there, ensure that anytime the person is coming around or whatever the person does to you, just see it as this person does not determine my joy and would not take my peace at the back of your mind, and just keep doing your job. And I believe you love your job. So this should also be a response. So do your job as you ought, but plot your exit until it becomes successful for you to leave the environment. Thank you. Any other question? I don't know if I answered you.
Yes, ma'am, you did. Thanks so
Okay.
much.
All right. Thank you. So any other question?
There's a question in the chat by Mona in the chat.
Okay. All right. I work in a place where you cannot trust which colleague you are pouring out your art about the toxicity in the office. Okay. And then once your boss hears that you said something about toxic environments, you are then seen as a problem and marked and then mistreated. At this point, you have to watch it. So when I mentioned communicate with your colleague or supervisor, I'm not saying you should pour it out to anybody. No, you don't do that. Observe the environment. If you do not have friends at all in your workplace, it's okay. Now, if there is nobody you can pour your heart out in the workspace, find someone outside your workspace, a friend or a mentor. There are people I rant to. I have friends amongst my colleagues, like very cool friends, if they're not even on this call, right? I have cool friends. Then I have mentors, I have co-colleagues outside my workspace that I rant to, that I go and tell, God, this is what I'm going through. I need your advice. Oh, let's gist. How are you doing? So have a friend in your niche, working in another environment where you can share experiences, share knowledge and insights. Okay. So you can pour it out to that person. If you feel that, oh, there is someone you can't trust in your work environment, it's okay. The truth is you cannot trust anybody. And emotional intelligence is actually very key. You cannot trust everybody in your work environment. Find someone outside your work environment that you can speak to, right? And I believe that would help. All right, so Dr. Yemi, any other question? I think that's
Just
the last.
before Mona's question, there is a question just before Mona. And the question is, please,
Okay.
if the organization is toxic,
But
but
your line
your
manager,
line manager is sweet, what do you
what do you
advise?
advise? So the
Then,
environment, the organization can be toxic for different reasons. And your line manager is sweet. If your line manager is a sweet person, I believe you guys can make a formidable force to change what it is that is going wrong in our organization. Don't you think so? So this person who asked this question, have you tried having a sit down with your line manager and then you guys coming together as a force to see how you can make, reasonable suggestions to your organization? Okay. If you can't do that, your line manager should, because I believe there should be a level of respect that your organization has for your line manager. That person is a manager. The person holds a managerial position in that organization. So there is a level of impact and influence that person has in that organization. So I believe that whatever you guys come together to talk about, to say or suggest, would definitely work, right, in that organization. So I think this is actually a very, you have to apply wisdom here. The organization is toxic. There are different reasons why the organization is toxic. Okay, but then speak to your line manager and see how you guys can make things change. And if you feel that this thing is becoming too consistent and there is a level of stagnation that is not appealing to you, then you can as well plot your exit, because it's not about your line manager. You're not there for your line manager. You are there for you. Your relationship can continue outside that environment. So if you feel that you guys have deployed options, you've explored all your approach and strategies in making things better and it's not working, then plot your exit. Thank you. Okay, hello, ma. Good evening.
You have.
Sorry? I don't know if we're talking to me. You're breaking, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Yemi.
Somebody.
Yeah, I can hear you. Your voice is breaking, but I can hear you. You said I should proceed. Good evening, everyone. So I'm not asking a question. I just want to quickly make a contribution. This is because I understand or how is that called? I've been to different organizations and I understand how mentally draining it can be. And one thing I want you to understand is, see, there is no one way to dealing with toxic environments, because you are the only one who is in that organization and you understand what you are going through. And whatever it is anyone is going to provide as a solution will be based on the person's immediate environment, what the person has been through in the past, and the person's experience. The person might not be able to dive deeper into what you are going through based on your context. So one thing I always advise people to do is, see, before you enter any organization, the first thing is ensure that you deliberate with whoever is recruiting you very well. Ensure that you are getting compensation that you want, that at the end of the day, after somebody insults you and say your head is not correct, you look at your pocket and be like, anyway, do you understand? So when you are going to toxic environments, make sure that whatever it is you are getting out of that job, actually, there's nothing that can make up for your mental health. That's the truth. But you see, I don't know about others, but there's a way I deal with toxic environments. At the end of the day, whatever it is you say, I look at my pocket, I'll be like, well, it is called a job because it's not meant to be easy. I sift whatever it is you have spoken, you have told me. The one that is not probably you call me names or whatever, I take that out. I don't think about it. I just deal with what exactly you are trying to correct me about and let that go. Sometimes if I have to cry about it, I will do. If that is the only therapy that I need at that time, and I move on. So you have to try and understand what therapy works for you. If talking to people is not what works for you, don't try it. And when you are going through a toxic environment, I would even advise that you don't talk to no matter how your line manager is soft, and you may think the person is by your side or probably thinks to the way you think, it might not be exactly what you think. The person might be a yes person, saying yes to you and acting as if he's cool with you, but also at the same time is Oga's boy. So you really don't know. So before you go ahead and speak to the line manager that this is what can we do, or you trying to use the line manager to change the person, be sure that the line manager is actually truly for you. So if you are not sure, I would advise that you don't talk to anybody. Just do your job and go out of there. And see, the truth is, when you are in a toxic environment and you have really dissected it and you have seen that there is no way out of here, just as the facilitator mentioned, try to detach yourself from that person as much as you can. It is not something that is impossible. You can do it, actually. I do it a lot. No matter how much I work with you, I try to limit my conversation with you. If I make myself available for you after work hours, at weekends, at odd hours before, I try to limit it. I'm about to do it with someone and be like, no, you don't even pick us anymore. I will find something to tell you. I might say that, I was forging and I didn't see your call or something. But I will just limit limit how I relate with you, because the more we relate together at every time, every now and then, the more we are continuing to experience what I don't want to experience. So it is not something that is impossible for you to limit your interaction with the person. No matter how you work with the person, make sure that whatever it is you guys deal with now is professional, and try to document whatever it is. If the person give you instruction, try to document it. If the person use word of mouth to give you instruction, you can go back to the person's WhatsApp or probably email and say, I'm following up, and just document what the person has told you to do, so that by the tomorrow you will not say, that is not what I asked you to do, you are dumb. So, and then as you are doing that, please be planning your exits by the side. Me, the way I do my things is, when I enter a new environment, either the place is toxic or not, the first day I enter is the first day I start planning my exit. It does not mean that I might not leave the place till 4 years, but I just start planning as I'm documenting everything that I'm doing, and I'm also building myself just in case I want to quickly dash out if I can no longer take it. These are just the contributions I said. Let me just chip in. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank
Ogali,
you.
you can contribute.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Doctor, for this opportunity. The thing is that I think the last speaker has actually touched on most of the areas I wanted to speak about. But the truth is that, you see, when we talk about toxic environment, I think because of the experience I've had so far, there are environments that you say, okay, this is toxic. And that same environment you are saying that is toxic, some people are enjoying it, benefiting from it. There is no work that is toxic, it's people that are toxic. You understand? So it's the people that are toxic. You may be suffering a particular, maybe is your boss you are suffering or whatever, but some people are benefiting from that same environment, that toxicity. People are benefiting from it. So the advice I will add to what the last speaker I just given is that before first of all you go into any environment, make sure you study, ask questions to know where you are going into. Most of the toxic environment that are so critical that people finding difficult to say, okay, you want to do a change is in private organization, private sector. These are the areas that where you have just one person that is deciding what is happening in the organization, and the person is standing as a boss. No matter what you say, it's none of their business. So the only advice is that before you go into such place, please find out, ask questions. I want to use myself as an example. I mentioned it here one time. Sometimes, I think late last year, somebody, I got a job. So somehow it's one man business, but he's doing very well, and we've agreed on salary. And his consultant saw my CV. He was like, quietly he called me in confidence that he has looked at my CV. It's like, he will not allow this man to come and waste his time here. He told me that the only thing he would tell me is that if I know that I have a job, I should just take 1 month leave, come and work there. If I'm comfortable, I can resign from where I'm coming from. But if I am not, that is the only thing he would tell me. From there, I was able to use my tongue to count my teeth. I already know that there's a problem. And do you know what? From the offer he gave me, from the offer letter, as I go through the offer letter, I know I say, there's a problem. I rejected it. As I'm speaking to you now, 2 HR people had already got there. And the second person, just today, the same person called me and was telling me about the person, complaining about the person already. I say, no, it's a no-go area. And I was not advising him that any change that anybody is initiating now is you. It's you. The change will come from you. Accept that you want a change in your organization. Otherwise, there will not be any change. You will not see anybody doing the right thing except you. So my advice is before you go into any place, please find out, how is this place? Toxic environment exists, but very common in private organizations, and it's people that are toxic. What you cannot change, manage it and plan your exit. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So final question, and we wrap up. Ayobami, there's one question in the chat. Please, that's the final question and just your closing remark. That's all, please.
Okay, so in a situation whereby your line manager is feeling insecure because your MD has started noticing your hard work, making your line manager bullying you indirectly to the extent of restricting your job functions to your lower colleagues, especially if your line manager got the veto power. So the best advice I can give to you is you just focus on your job, because people see you, okay, beyond your line manager or whatever. All right. So people are seeing what you're doing. And I understand that bit where people want to do things to gain glory or make other people see them, right? See the effort they are giving in. This will definitely, get some other persons in the same work environment to feel demoralized, demotivated, or feel like, who are you? Do you understand? Like your what's it called now? Your manner of perfection or inputs is affecting or oppressing them. See, we think things differently. Okay, so what I'm going to advise you is keep doing your job. In fact, you are even advantaged because it is your MD that is noticing your hard work. And if your line manager keeps taking your job functions, giving your lower colleagues, right, what you're supposed to be doing, well, observe your environment, do proper analysis to see if the environment or the atmosphere permits that you approach your line manager, not about his attitude to you, but about your job. And this is how best you can do it, right? Probably you reiterate what your KPIs are, what your KRAs are, and see if it is affecting your deliverables. And then you could just point this out that, oh, there are certain, well, just something on the lighter notes. You say if you like work, because that's actually to your advantage, but not a good thing. Call it out when you see that the environment and the atmosphere is pleasing enough for you to approach your line manager about. If not, just keep it to yourself and keep doing what you've been asked to do. So far it does not affect your job, right? Then enjoy. Thank you. All right. So my closing remark, I'll just say thank you for joining this session. I actually did learn, and I want to appreciate Dr. Oluyemi for the opportunity to come share insight and, talk on this topic. I do appreciate, and it's my first time here, and I do not take it for granted. So pleased to meet the rest of us, on this call. And I hope to have, better relationship after here with you guys, get to meet with you, outside, outside this platform, probably at conferences or meetings or wherever. I do hope that we are able to place a name on the face, but it's a good time meeting with you all here. So whenever you see Ayobami post anything on the group, who posted it. So I do appreciate. Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity. Dr. Oluyemi, you can take it up from here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, just one more thing. Let's appreciate our speaker. We can unmute and say thank you. And of course, good night. Thank God it's Friday, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mom.
Thank
you very
Thank you
much,
so
Mom.
much.
Thank you for.
Bye.
Thank you. Yeah, good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Night.